The black sickle drifted silently through the void, its hull streaked with old battle scars and cargo clamps still stained with dried plasma. Inside, the air was tense, thick with the scent of fuel and sweat. The mercenary crew, hardened, seasoned, and always hungry for credits, had taken on a contract that promised easy money: board a stranded vessel in neutral space, secure a stolen energy core, eliminate resistance, if any, and return without a scratch. Captain Rax, a towering brute with cybernetic arms and a permanent scowl, leaned over the main console, watching the target ship on screen. It was a Terran transport, old, slow, no weapons in sight, and drifting like a ghost through the stars. "No signals, no shields, no traps," muttered the tech officer, Ven, squinting at the data. "Too easy," grunted Rax, signaling his boarding crew. The team suited up and crossed through the docking tube with confident strides, weapons ready, expecting desperate pirates or scared smugglers. But when the doors hissed open, they found silence. The lights were dim, flickering above a blood-streaked floor. No alarms, no defenses. Just 5 humans sitting calmly in the central bay, 2 men, 2 women, 1 child wounded, unarmed, and watching. One of the women stood slowly. Young, pale-skinned, eyes too sharp. She didn't flinch as rifles pointed at her. "You shouldn't have come," she said softly. The Merc laughed. One stepped forward, raising his weapon. "Cute." Back against the wall, "Sweetheart," then he was gone. Not shot. Not attacked. Gone. One blink, 1 heartbeat gone. His rifle clattered to the floor. The silence that followed was loud enough to crush the crew's nerves. "Ven, where is he?" barked Rax. The tech scrambled to his scanner. Nothing. No biosigns. No transport signature. The humans didn't move. The woman's eyes didn't blink. "I told you," she whispered. Rax cursed and ordered a sweep of the ship, his mercenaries splitting into teams, checking corridors and supply bays. But each time they separated, another vanished. No gunfire, no struggle, just silence. Panic set in. One Merc swore he saw shadows moving behind walls. Another claimed the child had eyes that glowed when no one looked directly at him. Rax tried to retreat, to get back to the black sickle, but the airlock was sealed shut. Locked from the inside. "This is a trap," he shouted. Ven trembled at the console, trying to override the doors, when a message flashed across the screen in blood-red letters. A PEXPROTOCOLONLINA. Ven froze. He knew that term from forbidden data files, old Earth military logs that had long been wiped from public record. "Captain," he said slowly, "these aren't civilians. There's something else." One of the humans, a man this time, stood. "We aren't here to kill you," he said. "Not unless you fail." Rax aimed his plasma cannon. "Fail what?" The lights flickered. Cold swept through the ship. "The test," the man replied. Then the child stood and stared straight into the nearest camera. Across every deck, every screen lit up with a single line of code, repeated again and again. YOUARABEEINGOBSERVED. The crew's bioscanners began to malfunction. Temperatures dropped without warning. Footsteps echoed from nowhere. Rax barked orders, but his voice sounded hollow, distant, like it wasn't part of the ship anymore. The humans remained in the bay, unmoving, waiting. Ven accessed deeper system logs, bypassing safety locks. What he found made his hands go numb. Years ago, Earth had created a special kind of soldier humans altered not to fight with weapons, but with pure adaptation. They studied threats, absorbed patterns, and became the ultimate answer to enemy force. They were called a PEX. Then Earth erased all traces of them. Rumors said they had gone rogue or were too dangerous to control. And now, 5 of them were sitting quietly on a dead ship in neutral space, waiting to be retrieved by the curious and the greedy. Rax kicked over a console in rage, yelling that they would blast their way out. He didn't notice the girl step forward until she was inches away. "You can't fight the dark with fire," she said. "You only make the shadows grow." Then the lights died completely. Screams echoed in the dark, sharp and short. Ven dropped to the floor, covering his head. Then, silence again. When the emergency lights flickered back on, only Rex, Ven, and two others remained. The rest gone. The humans still stood in place. No blood on their hands, no marks of violence, only calm. The woman looked at Rex and said, "Now you know what fear is. Real fear. The kind your enemies feel when they see us." Rax stumbled back, gasping. "What are you?" She smiled faintly, almost sadly. "We were your creation. Your answer to a war no one remembers. But you left us behind." The captain tried to fire, but his weapon sparked uselessly. Ven whispered, "They're not soldiers. They're warnings." The woman nodded. "Tell your employers. Tell your galaxy. We still remember Earth. And Earth never forgets its sharpest tools." As the remaining Merce backed away, the child finally spoke, his voice like static on an old radio. "This is the beginning." And the ship, without any pilot, began to move on its own, heading deeper into space, pulling its passengers into something far beyond their pay grade and far worse than death. Darkness filled the hallways of the Black Sickle as panic spread through the surviving mercenaries like fire through dry leaves. Rax marched forward with a stiff jaw, his heavy boots thudding on the metal floor, but his eyes shifted nervously at every flicker of light. Ven stayed close behind, gripping a small scanner that beeped uselessly, its readings scrambled, bouncing between error messages and static. Two other Merce, Jorah and Tex, flanked them with weapons raised, but their hands trembled. None of them dared speak. Every shadow felt alive. Every corner promised something waiting to pounce. The silence of the ship was no longer quiet. It was loud with tension, thick like fog. The five humans were still sitting in the central bay, unmoving, unharmed, yet terrifying. Not a single shot had been fired, yet half the crew was gone, vanished like smoke. Rax ordered Ven to find a way to reboot control of the ship's systems, but the tech only shook his head. "It's like something's inside the code," he whispered. "They're rewriting it as I watch." Rax didn't understand half of what he said, but he understood enough they weren't in control anymore. The mercenary ship, once feared across sectors, had become a prison. Rax stared at the central monitors and saw one of the humans, a man this time, turn and look directly into the camera. The screen shimmered and the image glitched. When it returned, the human's face was replaced with a twisted mirror of Rax's own. Same scars. Same eyes. But colder. Meaner. A whisper came through the speakers, low and sharp. "You're predictable." Jorah cursed and stepped back, yelling that they needed to blow the airlock, get to the escape pods. But Tex reminded him those had been sealed. "We're rats in a box," he muttered, scanning the ceiling as if something might drop from above. Suddenly, Jorah screamed and fired his rifle but hit only a wall. "I saw her. I saw that girl standing right here." He shouted, but the hallway was empty. Tex put a hand on his shoulder to calm him, then gasped. Jorah's chest had gone still. No blood. No wounds. Just stillness. His eyes frozen open, mouth half-formed in a scream, body hard as stone. "He's dead," whispered Tex. "No," he's paused. Rex had had enough. "Back to the command deck. We'll blow this ship up if we have to." But as they turned, the corridor lights shifted. They didn't just dim, they changed color. Pale blue, then green, then red. Slow. Rhythmic. Like a heartbeat. The walls trembled as if reacting to the crew's fear. Ven stopped mid-step. "Captain, I don't think the ship is just being hacked. I think it's becoming part of them." Rex looked at him. "You saying they're controlling it?" "No," Ven said, swallowing hard. "I'm saying the ship is them now." They reached the command deck, sealed the doors, and tried to call for help. Static answered them. Rax tried the emergency beacon, the military channel, even the bounty network. Finally, one line came through, a cold voice that made their blood freeze. "Protocol Echelon is in effect. You engage dormant, a PEX-class asset. No rescue inbound. That was all. Ven's hands trembled as he opened hidden logs in the ship's system. "What is a PEX?" Tex asked. Ven read aloud, his voice hollow. "Adaptive Predatory Extremis. Distorted but real." A soldier screams as his own reflection climbs out of a mirror, grabbing him with hands identical to his. Another clip showed a planet-side war zone. Drones captured brief footage of an APEX walking calmly through crossfire, bullets bending midair away from their skin. Then came a black screen and a final note, a PEX protocol deemed uncontrollable. Terminate if possible. Containment advised. Avoid engagement. Rax read that last part 3 times and muttered, "We didn't just poke the beast. We walked into its mouth." Tex, the last of the remaining Mercs besides Ven, sat near the weapons panel, staring at the floor. "They let us live," he said. "But why?" Before anyone could answer, a low rumble passed through the ship. Not damage, not an attack, something deeper, like the entire hull groaning under pressure. Lights dimmed again, not fully, just enough to remind them that control was slipping. The energy core supposedly stolen, now resting in the central reactor, had begun to pulse. Ven checked the readings. "It's reacting to their presence," he said. "It's alive now. Not powering systems, powering them." Rex stood. "So that's what they needed us for. We didn't just stumble into this. We were the delivery crew." Tex shook his head. "No. We were the bait. They wanted to see if we could handle them. And if we couldn't, they'd learn from us anyway." A quiet chime echoed through the deck. One by one, screens came to life again. This time, not just showing the humans, but scenes from Earth's past. Cities during the silent wars. Streets filled with fog and panic. Broadcasts from decades ago, warning of a quiet weapon that wore the face of a friend. The crew watched in silence as a new image appeared. 5 names. No last names, just call signs echo. Lumen, Rift, Coil, and Vox. Faces matched the ones they'd seen. These weren't random survivors. These were the APAX team, each designed for a different adaptation style. Echo for mimicry, Lumen for perception, Rift for movement, Coil for environmental control, and Vox for psychological manipulation. "They're not just learning," Ven whispered. "They're reawakening to who they were. And we're the key to unlocking them." Suddenly, the door behind them hissed open. Standing there was Vox the child. No longer quiet or confused, his posture was straight, eyes glowing faintly blue. He looked directly at Rax. "We remember Earth," he said calmly. "But Earth has forgotten us." Rax didn't raise his weapon this time. "Why bring us here?" The child stepped forward. "Because the galaxy needs to remember. A PEX was not a weapon. It was a warning, and warnings must be seen." The walls of the ship shifted again, as if listening. New doors opened across the map. The energy core's pulse grew stronger, reaching through the ship like veins. "You're taking us somewhere," Ven said. The child nodded. "To the Thalrex. They must be reminded first." Tex stood up sharply. "The Thalrex Empire? That's suicide. They'll destroy us." "They tried before," Vox said. "They failed." Rax stared at him. "So this is about revenge?" The child shook his head. "No. This is about balance." The galaxy shifted when Earth fell silent. It grew loud with cruelty and pride. "We are Earth's echo, and we are loud enough to be heard again." The ship began moving on its own, course set toward Thalrex territory. No one on board had touched the controls. Ven turned to the others, voice shaking. "If this gets out, if they're truly back, every mercenary guild, pirate fleet, and empire will want to hide." Rax nodded slowly. "Because the last thing any of them want is to see a human walk into their war and say nothing." The lights flickered one last time. The girl Lumen appeared briefly in the hallway, watching them, not smiling, just observing. Then she turned and vanished into the shadows. The message was clear. The APEX had returned, not as weapons, not as monsters, but as ghosts of Earth, walking reminders of the power that had once slept beneath the soil of a quiet blue planet. And now, that silence was broken. The Black Sickle glided through deep space like a ghost ship, its engines silent, its controls untouched, and its new course locked tight toward the Thalrex border, the heart of an empire known for crushing worlds without mercy. Rax stood on the command deck, eyes fixed on the stars ahead, trying to understand how everything had changed so fast. They had started as mercenaries, chasing what looked like a routine bounty, and now they were passengers on a ship hijacked by something far older and far more powerful humans, or something that looked a black project from Earth. Soldiers bred not just to fight but to learn, to become whatever their enemy fears most. Fast, silent, untouchable. They were meant to end wars before they started. He looked up. They succeeded. But then Earth hid them away, locked them down. Until now. Rax clenched his fists. So we're trapped on a ship with weapons that think for themselves. Ven nodded. And adapt faster than we can react. A quiet thud echoed from behind the command deck wall. Then another, like footsteps getting closer. The room felt colder. The air thinner. A low hum filled the space, growing louder with each heartbeat. The screens around them began to show strange images, not camera feeds, but visions. Tex saw his old squad, the ones lost during the war in Relax 9. But they looked wrong, pale, hollow-eyed, whispering things he couldn't hear. Ven saw Earth, burning, but not from attack from within, cities folding in on themselves, consumed by shadows shaped like people. Rax saw himself standing alone on the deck, older, broken, holding a blood-stained Terran flag. Then the images vanished. The lights returned, but the fear stayed. They're inside our minds, Ven whispered. They're showing us what we fear most. They're studying it. Suddenly, a hiss from the ceiling. A panel slid open. The girl, the one who had first spoken, dropped gently to the floor, landing like a feather. She looked around the room with curiosity, not malice. You're adapting, she said calmly. Good. We are too. Rax pointed his weapon. What do you want? She tilted her head. To remember. To evolve. To continue. You're killing us. Only the ones who fight. Tex, trembling, said, What happens if we stop? The girl walked slowly toward him. Then we talk. Rax didn't lower his weapon. He looked at Ven, then at Tex. They were shaking, scared, but still alive. Then he looked at the girl. Small, barefoot, harmless looking. But every instinct told him she could snap his mind in half if she wanted. He lowered his weapon. Talk then, he growled. The girl smiled. You pass. And just like that, the doors opened, the lights returned to normal, and the hum of the ship returned to its usual rhythm. The humans had vanished from the monitors. Only the child remained on one screen, sitting alone, drawing strange patterns on the wall with a piece of broken metal. Where are they going? Ven asked. The girl answered without turning back. To prepare. You brought us what we needed. The energy core? Tex asked. She nodded. The final piece. The key to what we were, and what we will become. Then she too vanished, leaving behind only silence and a ship that no longer felt like their own. Rax turned to his crew. We're not getting paid for this, are we? No one laughed. Not even a little. Long ago, during the final years of Earth's silent wars, when battles were fought not with armies but with shadows, the world governments created something in secret, something they hoped would end every future war before it started a project known only by its classified name, a PX. These weren't ordinary soldiers. They weren't trained in traditional weapons or standard tactics. Instead, a PAX operatives were designed through genetic rewriting and psychological shaping to adapt faster than any known species, to learn threats, not with fear, but by becoming the very thing their enemies feared most. They were silent, smart, and unbreakable. If a target used stealth, they became shadows. If they relied on brute force, a PEX became stronger. They didn't just fight, they mirrored, evolved, and then surpassed. Their only weakness was that they needed time to study. Once they learned enough, nothing could stop them. The project had worked too well. After just 2 field operations, a PEX, like humans, but moved and thought like predators. Behind him, Ven worked nervously at the console, though none of his actions made a difference anymore. The systems no longer listened to him, they obeyed the APAX. The energy core deep inside the ship pulsed louder than ever, sending waves of power through the hull, and the closer they got to the Thorax border, the more alive it felt. The lights no longer flickered but moved like breathing, following a rhythm that was not mechanical but living. Tex had retreated to the armory, but he didn't touch the weapons anymore. He just sat in silence, gripping a small photo of his family, as if it might protect him. It had been 2 days since the APEAX revealed their true nature, and they had barely spoken since. Sometimes Rax caught glimpses of them in the halls, Lumen walking without sound, Echo mimicking voices from the past, Rift appearing in one place and vanishing into another. They never harmed the crew again, never attacked, but their presence made it hard to sleep, hard to breathe. And then something changed. Without warning, the entire ship shook not from impact, but from inside. The floor pulsed. Alarms screamed briefly before cutting off. A new heat filled the corridors. Ven shouted, "It's the core, it's waking up." Rax rushed to the engineering bay, and what he saw made him stop cold. The energy core, once a dull sphere of metal and light, had expanded. Tendrils of glowing matter now stretched from it. Strange symbols shimmered along its surface, Earth symbols, military codes, and something older. The APEX stood in a circle around it, all 5 of them, silent. Their eyes glowed brighter than before, their skin flickering like light was trapped inside. "What is it doing?" Rax asked, his voice dry. Echo turned slightly toward him. "It remembers." "Remembers what?" Ven asked as he ran in behind Rax. "Us," Echo said. "Earth. The reason it was made." Lumen stepped forward and touched the core. It pulsed in response, and a deep sound echoed through the ship like a voice too large to understand. "It was a seed," she whispered. "Not just for energy. For rebirth." The crew watched as the ship's interior began to shift. Walls moved. Consoles reformed. The Black Sickle was becoming something else, something not built by mercenaries, but by Earth's forgotten technology. Old steel melted into smooth, dark plating. Screens lit up with new symbols. A language that hadn't been seen in 100 years was returning. "The ship is rewriting itself," Ven said, eyes wide. "It's merging with the core's design. It's becoming an APEX-class vessel." Tex finally entered, face pale. "Why? Why now?" Rift turned toward him, voice calm and cold. "Because the Thorax must be shown what they've forgotten. They'll kill us the second we cross into their space," Tex snapped. "They've got entire fleets, moons full of soldiers." Vox, the smallest of them, looked up. "Good. They'll be watching." The energy core let out another pulse, and this time, everyone on board felt it like a memory entering their heads. Rax saw Earth whole and strong before it vanished behind smoke and silence. Ven saw PEX units walking through ruined cities, helping people, not hurting them. Tex saw children learning beside a PAX soldiers like guardians, not killers. Then the visions changed. Cities burned. Orders were given to lock the APEX away. Fear won, and Earth fell silent. "They weren't made to conquer," Rex said softly. "They were made to protect." Lumen nodded. "But protection requires power, and power brings fear." The ship reached the edge of Thalrex space. Warning beacons blinked on the map. A voice echoed through the comms, harsh and mechanical. "Unidentified vessel. You are entering restricted territory. Turn back or be destroyed." The crew froze. The APEX didn't move. They will fire, Ven whispered. They'll send everything they have. Let them, said Echo. They need to remember. The core pulsed again, faster now, brighter. Rax realized the APEX weren't preparing for war, they were calling it to them. The Thalrex didn't wait long. Within moments, 3 ships appeared on radar, massive cruisers, bristling with weapons. Their targeting systems locked in. A countdown began. They'll blow us to pieces? Tex shouted. But then, the ship changed again. Panels slid open. Hidden weapons emerged, not like anything Rax had ever seen. Not bullets, not lasers. Something purer. Light twisted into sharp beams. Shields rose, humming with energy that bent space. The APEX stood calm as the first missile flew. It hit, but the explosion vanished in a ripple, absorbed by the shields. The return fire came without sound. 1 beam, 1 second, and the lead Thalrex cruiser vanished gone, erased, not exploded. The second ship tried to flee. The black sickle moved without engines, shifting through space like water. It appeared above the fleeing cruiser, and without touching it, shut it down. Lights out. Engines dead. Weapons melted. The third ship fired everything it had, screaming across the void. But before its blasts could land, Rift stepped forward, vanished, and reappeared inside the enemy bridge. A second later, the entire ship turned and began firing on empty space, confused and blind. Vox's voice came over the comms, speaking in perfect Thalrex dialect. You have forgotten Earth. We are here to remind you. Then, silence. The battle was over. 3 ships reduced to fear and smoke. No death needed. Just power. Rax stood in the command deck, watching it all, unsure if he felt proud or terrified. What happens now? He asked. Vox answered, stepping beside him. Now, they tell the others. Now the galaxy watches. And now Earth speaks again. The core pulsed once more, brighter than before, and in that light, Rax saw something he didn't expect hope. But it was wrapped in something sharp. Something powerful. Something the stars had forgotten. And now they would remember. The black sickle drifted silently above the shattered remains of the Thalrex fleet, its sleek black hull glowing with strange ancient light as the energy core within it pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and strong, sending invisible ripples through space, ripples that would reach every listening sensor across the galaxy. Inside the ship, Rax stood on the bridge, staring at the flickering data feeds and the vast field of wreckage outside, still trying to understand how he had gone from hunting down cargo to standing beside legends that weren't supposed to exist. Behind him, Ven worked quietly at the console, hands shaky, but focused as more signals lit up the screen. Other ships were watching now. Distant satellites had begun tracking them, and silent alarms were blinking red from the edges of known space. They were no longer hidden. The APAX had made their move. The galaxy had seen it. And now, everyone would remember the name they tried to bury. The APAX stood at the heart of the ship, around the glowing core that now looked less like a machine and more like a living mind. Echo moved with perfect calm, his body reflecting the crew's smallest movements. Rift stood half visible in a strange shimmer, always just between one place and the next. Lumen's eyes glowed like stars, watching through walls, through space, through lies. Coil sat near the power lines, drawing energy into her veins, and Vox, the smallest, the quietest, the one who had first spoken to Rax, now stood with the stillness of command. Rax stepped closer. You've shown them what you are. But what now? What do you want? Vox turned to him, face calm. It's not about what we want. It's about what they must remember. Tex entered from the hallway, carrying a tablet full of intercepted messages. They're all talking about us now. The trade clans, the pirate lords, even the old Earth colonies. No one knows what to call you. Some think you're weapons. Others think you're ghosts. Vox took the tablet, scanned the data, and set it aside. Let them guess. They forgot our name, so now they must earn the right to remember it. Ven looked up from his console. The Thalrex won't stay quiet. They'll send more. A fleet. Maybe their whole armada. Echo smiled faintly. Good. Let them come. Every empire forgets. Every empire needs to fear again. The ship shifted slightly as a new course plotted itself. No one had touched the controls. The APEX weren't escaping. They were heading deeper into Thalrex space. Rax stepped forward. This isn't just about memory, is it? You're not here to be seen. You're here to make them understand what Earth really was. Lumen finally spoke. Earth wasn't a place. It was a promise. A truth buried by fear. A lesson ignored. We are that lesson. As the ship moved, the stars outside grew darker, clusters of satellites blinking in the distance like watchful eyes. The Thalrex had turned their inner systems into fortresses, guarded by machines that felt no fear but that would change. The Black Sickle passed through the first defense ring without resistance. The satellites scanned the ship, identified the energy core, and then shut down, not by force, but as if something within the ship whispered to them and they obeyed. Ven stared in disbelief. You're not just tech. You're something more. Coil finally stood and said, we are the answer to what happens when power is used to protect, not control. The crew watched as the capital world of the Thalrex appeared ahead, massive, wrapped in rings of fire and metal, filled with ships, weapons, armies waiting. A message came through the comms, deep and full of hate. You are in restricted space. You have destroyed Thalrex vessels. Surrender and face judgment. Vox stepped to the comms and spoke 3 simple words. We remember Earth. For a moment, there was silence. Then hundreds of ships launched from the surface, surrounding the Black Sickle in a sphere of steel and rage. Lasers powered up. Missiles armed. Armored soldiers waited to board. Rax clenched his fists. We won't survive this. But Echo smiled. You will, because they won't dare forget again. The energy core pulsed like a sun waking up. The ship transformed, fully smooth walls peeled away to reveal ancient plating, weapons shaped from light and sound, shields made from folded space. The APAX each stepped into position, Echo to the targeting systems, Rift to the engines, Coil to the weapons grid, Lumen to the sensors, and Vox to the command core. Together, they formed a circuit of memory and power. The enemy fired first. Thousands of blasts raced toward the ship, but none landed. Space bent. Time slowed. Beams curved around the Black Sickle as if afraid to strike. Then came the response, not an attack, but a message. The Black Sickle sent out a pulse of pure thought, a wave of soundless history that filled every Thalrex ship, every soldier's mind, every system's memory. They saw Earth as it was green, proud, full of life and strength. They saw the APAX walking through fire to protect the weak, standing alone against alien threats, never asking for thanks, only to be remembered. They saw the betrayal, the fear, the silence. And they saw Earth's last whisper rise again. Some Thalrex ships backed away. Others held position, frozen in uncertainty. A few still fired, but their weapons failed. They weren't stopped, they simply lost the will. Rax turned to Vox. You did it. You made them remember. But Vox shook his head. Not yet. One remains. On the surface, deep inside the Thalrex Central Command, an ancient machine stirred a construct built from stolen Earth tech, a forbidden experiment the Thalrex thought they had mastered. They called it the Apex Nullifier. It was designed to erase all traces of a PEX coding. Now, it was awake and it was coming. The Black Sickle descended without fear. The construct rose to meet it, a massive thing of metal and teeth and noise. But as it opened fire, the APEX didn't fight. They stepped outside the ship, floating in the air, and simply stood. The machine targeted them, but its systems blinked red. Error. Identity conflict. Recognition loop. The APEX moved forward. Each step brought memories flooding back into the machine. They were not its enemies. They were its origin. Coil reached forward and touched the machine's core. The lights inside it dimmed, then brightened. "You forgot your name," she said. "We remember it for you." The construct shut down. Silence returned. The Thalrex broadcast went dark. No more threats. No more orders. Just quiet. Across the galaxy, the signal spread a PEX had returned, not to rule, not to destroy, but to remind the stars what it meant to stand for something greater than power. Back aboard the Black Sickle, Rex looked at the crew, at the APEX, at the stars beyond. "What now?" Vox smiled, the first real smile Rex had seen from him. "Now we give the galaxy one last gift." Rex asked, "What's that?" Vox looked up. The name they forgot. And in that moment, a final signal was sent, not through weapons, not through war, but through the core, through light and time and silence. A signal that spoke one word to every world, every system, every ruler, human. And the stars listened.